Welcome to A Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and today I am delighted to be joined by Lawrence Conley and Kevin Graham for the Matchday coverage of Celtic versus Hibernian. Hibs are coming to town, Lawrence. We have seen the team of Barkas, Frimpong, Beaton, Duffy, Ayer, Taylor, Brown, McGregor, Christie, Elyounoussi, Ajeti. Question is, how do we line up?
I think it's a tough one to pick today, but I'm going to go 4-4-2 with a diamond. So Barkas, Ayer in at right back, Duffy being at centre half, Taylor at left. Brown is your holding midfielder, Frimpong on the right, McGregor on the left, Christie just behind the front two of Ajeti and Moel, because I think we'll need to watch Hibs' energy and pace. So I think sometimes if we go 3-5-2, we're a bit vulnerable in the flanks. I think we'll be a bit more solid when Hibs have the ball, and definitely be a 4-4-2. Kevin,
how do you think, this is always the question, when you're looking at the adaptability of some of those players, Frimpong, Beaton, for example, Elyounoussi, how do you think we're going to line up today against who will be one of our closest challengers this season?
I love Lawrence's overthinking there. I've went for a 3-5-2. Barkas with the back three of Duffy, Beaton and Ayer. Frimpong on the right, Taylor on the left, Christie, McGregor, Brown and Ajeti and Moy up front. I think we'll stick with the 3-5-2 formation, and I know Hibs have got a bit of pace with Boyle, but I think what we'll try and do is make sure that he's looking after Taylor. If I was Hibs and having watched Celtic, if Hibs have watched Celtic over the last couple of weeks, then they'll know that we're weak down the left-hand side. And so they'll allow us to have the ball on the left-hand side. So they'll probably overload the right to try and keep Frimpong quiet.
I think domestically, though, Taylor's had some joy down that left. He has assisted, I think, 3 that I can think of. Livingston, 1 goal, 2 against Hamilton. Have there been others? And with the wide expanses of Celtic Park, it might actually come back to haunt them if they try and push too much on Frimpong, because you put 2 or 3 men on Frimpong, he's capable of taking them on.
Definitely, and you want him to do that. He was superb on Thursday night.
He was.
Absolutely magic to watch. I mean, the goal that we scored on Thursday night, I don't think it's been spoke about, and it was a quality move.
Did you see it from the angle behind the goal?
Started with the goalkeeper.
Brilliant.
And it's something I like about Barkas. He actually moves the ball extremely quick from the back. And it was some finish as well. It was a difficult finish.
It was, aye.
But look, we've got Hibs coming today. They've had a great start to the season. This is one of these games that I'm missing being in the ground. This is one of these games where you know that Hibs would have brought a good travelling support with them. They would be noisy. The Celtic fans would be up for this as well. This is probably the first game this season where I'm really sad that I'm sitting here. And that's not to do
Cheers, mate.
That's not to do with your boys' company, but if you know what I mean. It's one of them that we're really, really been looking forward to.
I think so, and Hibs, I'm going to actually say Hibs are flying, because they've got that positivity about them. I think they've got the right man in charge. They've bought really well. Some of the players, there's plenty more to talk about that Celtic lineup, but some of the players that I've been hugely impressed by, Nisbet, having seen him last season at Dunfermline a fair bit, and having spoken to quite a few Pars supporters who spoke very highly of Nisbet. But Gogic, I think, I'm not surprised. Gogic, because I think he really impressed last season when he was playing for Hamilton. Kevin, we probably spoke about him a few times on the podcast.
He really did stand out for Hamilton last season, and I remember talking to a few of my mates, and I says I would be really disappointed if an Aberdeen or somebody didn't go and sign him, because he's no good enough for us. But when you saw him playing in that Hamilton side, he really, really stuck out, and he does a decent job in the centre of that midfield, a decent job domestically. He's well suited for the Scottish game.
He definitely is. Now, I think Celtic will line up slightly differently to yourself. I've got a good comment here from Glasgow Roads, who's commenting via Twitter to say 3-5-2 with the ball, 4-4-2 when defending. That's a great point, because we've got the personnel that can adapt in match, and I think we've got to get away from, if we haven't already, this belief that we just set up a formation. Celtic's players couldn't possibly sit on a fixed formation. Depending on how that game goes today, we're going to be switching all over the park.
But folks say that we're no coached. and folks say that the team doesn't get coached, it doesn't look coached, but right away we've got a couple of comments and warnings that says that we could be two formations, and will be a formation in the ball and a formation out of the ball, and that will have been worked on over the last number of weeks.
Absolutely. I think, well, the starting or the attacking formation, because you would expect to be starting at Celtic Park in an attacking kind of sense, would be Barkas in goals. The back three of Beaton, Duffy and Ayer. Special mention for Beaton the other night. The guy was brilliant. Class. Right hand side, Frimpong. Tell him to forget about defending and make sure that one of the centre halves are going to be covering him, because if he tries to concentrate on defending, he's far less effective. Taylor on the left hand side, vice versa. He should be all about defending and maybe not so much, but I think he'll get a bit of freedom today based on your point, Kevin. The two in the middle of Brown McGregor with Christie in front, and then up top, Ayeti with El Yunusi maybe just playing off him. Interesting point being that El Yunusi and Ayeti had a partnership of sorts at Bal previously, which was very effective, and a lot of questions coming in via Twitter, Facebook and YouTube asking where Eduard is. Let's have a look at the bench. A very impressive bench it is as well. Scott Bain, Lee Griffiths. I think once or twice, Kevin, we've been shouting for Griff on that bench. And the reason for that is we can't have any empty jerseys. You see Griffiths on that bench now, you see Rogic on that bench. Yeah, they won't be 100% match fit, but you've got creativity on there. It's a very strong bench. You've got Encham. Have a wee chat about him as well, because I don't think he had a bad game the other night. Didn't look too chuffed when he came off. But you've also got Edward and Turnbull, Sorrow, Klamala and El Hamid. Now, there are so many options on that bench. In recent weeks, we've been including some younger players, one of whom is not Dembele, because I was getting questioned during the week about how come it's only Axon that's saying Dembele wants to move. Well, that's what we've been informed by one of our sources. That's a strong bench, Kevin. What do you make of Griffiths' return?
I'm quite glad that he's there. It's surprising with me, and I'm not going to backtrack to actually say that I expected him to come back, because I've been very clear that I didn't expect him to come back. Now that he's there, I want him to score goals. I know that he did watch the bulletin when I says that he wasn't coming back. So
you were getting tore in about him, eh?
I was, aye. So hopefully the day he comes on and scores and runs to the camera and calls me something under the sun. I'll be quite happy. I'll be quite happy if he does that. I hope he doesn't tune into any of our broadcasts today, because obviously he should be doing other things on that bench. Are we concerned that Edward's on the bench? No.
No.
Nah.
There's been a lot of kind of, can we even call it speculation? There's been people in the media who really without basis are starting to throw doubt over Edward's future at Celtic Park.
So 5th October, transfer window shuts. I think Lenny's saying there's been no significant interest yet. No, if there's going to be no fans in the ground, if Celtic get a big bid, it's it's something that Celtic would have to think about. But he's looked tired. He's had an awful lot of football, hasn't he? And last season it was just him for a period up front on his own. He's always away with France. I'm not concerned he's on the bench. If we're getting rest, if he's getting rest, he's going to need it. It's the kind of abuse he takes at the SPL. Look at Dundee United, the amount of late tackles on.
Yeah.
It's not just
he did.
the minutes, it's the amount of hits he's taken as well. So Ayeti and Big Mo, they had a partnership before at Bal. We saw it with Mo when he came on and he played just behind the striker. Best 10 or 15 minutes we've had him this season, isn't it? So you're not overly concerned. There's still goals in the team. There's definitely a goal with Griffiths, Kamala and Eddie on the bench to come on. We've got options coming off the
brilliant options.
Bench, innit?
What do you make, Kevin, of this suggestion? It came from Peter Martin. There's no point in saying just a suggestion. It came from Peter Martin that Julien, Edouard and Ayer were unhappy and they might have been causing some kind of friction behind the scenes. Where's the basis in this?
Another Chris Boyd. I've got my sources and I'm not telling you how I know that there's like splits in the camp. I mean, Big Julien doesn't seem like the type of guy who would be causing problems in the background. I mean, you have a look where Julien's come from.
And where he is, age-wise.
This is the biggest club he's ever going to play for.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think he realises how lucky that he is to be playing in Glasgow. Edouard is different at a different stage of his career. He knows that he's going to progress and he's going to go on.
And so do we. Yeah.
And so does Ayer.
Yep.
So Eddie doesn't seem the type of player to me that would cause problems. He doesn't seem that near desire. We can't justify what their agents do. Their agents might be causing bother behind the scenes, turning their heads.
Players can have ambitions to move on and they develop a career without causing problems where they are. And I think both of them would fall into that category. I mean, if Eddie wanted to have forced a move through, he could have done it last season. If he could be going to the press, other players have done it. Celtic, and he's never done that. The same with Big Chris. If he wants to force it, it's easy for him to give an interview at the press, but they're not doing that. They're not coming out and going, "This is what I want."
It just seems
maybe he watched the old Daily Record in my Celtic hell or something. But it's not happening.
It just seems to be the way now. Almost they must be causing problems behind the scene to get away. Instead of going, no, I'm going to be professional in my job. Mm-hmm. But if an offer comes in, I'm going to consider it.
I think those three players, when you look at their performance, let's look at Ayer the other night. And it was great. Stevie Ray, who pops in and out of the broadcast from time to time, pointed out the reaction of Ayer when we scored the winning goal. Mm-hmm. There's a boy that wants that as much as every one of us. And yes, in the back of his mind, he will leave Celtic. We all know that anyway. Because of the way he's developed, Kevin, we know that as a club, we will have to cash in eventually on Chris Ayer. The biggest concern for me is Chris Ayer. Of all the speculation, because Edouard's on the bench, we've started with a Yeti, probably El Yunusi's preferred position is not a centre forward. He can certainly play off the front man. But we've also got Klamala and Griffiths here. So I don't want to lose Edouard. I want to make that completely clear. But if he was to move due to financial issues caused by the pandemic, let's say, then we've got the cover. If Encham or Christie, one or the other, was to move, similarly, we've got players, just look at that bench, we've got players like Turnbull to come in. Encham's not starting today, so if you lose Christie, we've got the players that can replace them. The one position I don't think we've got the cover, and as I say this, I'm looking at Beaton probably playing centre half all of a sudden, is the central defensive area. El Hamid can play there. I don't know if he's better there or on the right, because he is good attacking, isn't he? But he's not going to get a game on the right hand side whilst Frimpong's in the form that he's in. It would be fantastic if Frimpong could maybe switch to the left. I don't think he can. But that is a position that Ayer's speculation is the most concerning of mine. Not because I think he's the best player, just for the cover in that position.
If Ayer goes, we would need to sign another centre half. There would have to be a contingency plan in there if Ayer goes. Because even though Beaton's playing today and Julian's injured, you've spoke about El Hamid. I still think we would need another first choice centre half in there. And I mean, the rumours Omar Colley are not going away. He scored for Sampdoria yesterday, but Sampdoria got beat 3-2 of Benevento. So they haven't had a decent start to the season as well. So his name won't go away. It's difficult because of where the transfer window ends. And it's really, really concerning for every one of us sitting here, and it's probably even more concerning for the coaching staff and the managers, and because they don't know what's going to happen.
See, the big thing I would say as well with the speculation is the first rule of source management is protect your source, right? So although somebody like Chris Boyd didn't have a source, or him and Chris Commons probably spoke about it over a biscuit or two and during one of their breaks, that was nonsense. But I see a lot of this speculation being created by people who quite clearly don't have a source, right? Now, we sometimes talk about certain things on this show, but we don't ever try and sell ourselves as in the know. There's plenty out there who do. We've heard about Dembele from a source very close to the club. But we also heard about, for example, the boy Hepburn, and we decided not to release that because we were asked not to. We heard about Hickey going to Bologna, turning down Celtic way before it appeared on the news. Again, asked not to release that. And famously or infamously, we were told about Brendan Rodgers by Big Rambo a long time before that happened as well. So when we're talking about a lot of this, Kevin, it's based on opinion. If we have information, we'll just say, listen, it is a source, but you can't reveal your source. You simply can't do that. But if you're then proven to be right, your credibility is here. If, like Chris Boyd, you're not, then your credibility is completely shot. And I just think it's, for me, it's inappropriate for somebody to come out, someone with, a lot of credibility to come out and say they 3 players are causing friction in the Celtic camp. I think that's really inappropriate.
It's inappropriate to name the players. It puts a lot of pressure on them. What do you think, Lawrence?
I mean, where's the players' right to reply? What do they, And, are they going to come and go, oh, yes, we are. So they're always, if they get a chance of right reply, it's no, we're not. But, it's putting pressure on the club and putting pressure on the players that it's just a bit of mischief sometimes, isn't it?
Bit of mischief. It is. It's all about the clicks, and it's all about getting a wee bit of kind of an upturn in the views on their daily broadcast, isn't it?
It's not like the Hearts situation where Hartley, Gordon and
the Ricketts three. Presley.
All played for Celtic.
Ended up giving a press conference, eh?
Yeah, I know, absolutely. Now, I'll have a look at some of the points coming through as well, because before we even clicked go live, there was about 50 different comments coming through, which is tremendous, and we love everybody getting involved here. So follow our Celtic on Twitter. Afternoon, lads. Great to see Griffiths on the bench. I expected Eddie to be dropped. Hope to see Turnbull on. This was another thing that you brought up before we went live, Kevin, about people being dropped. I think when you look at Ncham, he played okay. He actually played all right during the week. But the reason he's been dropped is so that we can play with the 2 up top, isn't it, really, to give El Yunusi a game. El Yunusi, in terms of his own confidence, that would have been shot to bits if he didn't start today. But Ncham didn't look chuffed when he came off. I'm not reading too much into that. If you're a professional footballer and you come off at nothing each,
you're never going to be happy, are you?
Exactly.
Off. You're never happy. You want to play football, or you should want to play football. So the fact that you're coming off, means that you're no longer affecting the game. I think the midfield's the hardest because Brown and McGregor are always going to start. There's generally only 3 positions up for grabs. So you've got Turnbull, Sorrell, Rogic, Cham, Christie, all going for, that third position. Sometimes most going for it as well, isn't he? So it's probably the hardest jersey to win is that third midfield position.
The coaching staff on Thursday night had to make a decision on who to take off in that midfield to try and change the game, knowing full well that the game could have went to extra time.
Who were you calling for at that point, Kevin? Be honest. Christie. Right, and Christie plays a massive part in the goal.
Christie plays a massive part in the goal.
This is the point I made.
You were calling to come off? Because I was thinking they might have taken Brown, he's on a yellow.
Yeah.
He'd had a bad tackle. You're looking and going, maybe it's time to protect it a bit, because they weren't offering much going forward.
No, they weren't. They certainly were not.
It's
a hard one to call, but obviously Christie on was the move.
Brown's
sure to go off.
Brown's the easy option, eh? There seems to be a whole swell of opinion that if we take Scott Brown out of that team, our problems are going to disappear. That you could then create another problem, because Scott Brown is the mentality of that team. And maybe Lennon is now looking at that going, if I take away Scott Brown, that team loses something. And it's an easy option to take away Scott Brown and blame him for our poor form, or the fact that we're not playing free-flowing football.
I seen it during the week, Kevin. It was called winning ugly, right? And it's just another wee cliche in football, winning ugly. We're certainly not hit top form. Everybody in the room and everybody tuning in will agree with that. But we are grinding out some results. You'd have much preferred to go to Paisley and win by 3 or 4 goals. Livingston 3-2 looks like a tight one, but it really wasn't as tight as the scoreline suggested. And that result over in Latvia, that was just, I'm happy to get out of there, get on the plane and come home at 1-0 at that point. Today, I think, is definitely a day for Celtic to click into that top gear. We know what our competitors are doing elsewhere, and it might come down to goal difference. We know that. We know that the president has been set in terms of calling a league. When you're sitting top of the league, you win the league. Again, it was mentioned last week, I don't know what percentage of the games would need to have been played. That maybe should have been made clear to all the clubs and all the supporters who were shelling out £500 for season tickets, to be fair.
Well, it's average points per game, isn't it? It's not, if you're top of the league, it's average points per game that will decide it. So just now, if the league was called, we would win the league.
But if you play one game and you've got 3 points, would you win the league?
Well, you kind of call it after one game. That gets to your point, but it's not who's top of the league is going to win it. It's who's got the average points per game. So just now we're in the league winning position. You know, and it's kind of maintaining that, isn't it? So
it certainly is maintaining it. And I think when you look at what happened last week with Hibs and Rangers, you know, I've seen some sides of the argument saying Rangers could have won the game, and I've seen the same argument coming from the Hibs side. Someone commented actually, because I've been saying all season that Hibs will definitely replace Aberdeen and Motherwell in terms of a contender, and I don't think they'll be pushing Celtic for the league, but they'll certainly be pushing for second place. And I was criticised for saying that, but I'm going to stand by it.
I think it's quite a educated gamble. If you have a look at Aberdeen have lost quite a number of decent players. They seem to be going stale under Derek McInnes. They're not firing well. Motherwell just haven't got the resource to keep their decent run going up. So you look at Hibs. Jack Ross is a very, very decent manager. Going to Sunderland and failing at Sunderland doesn't affect your CV one little bit. As anybody that's watched the Netflix documentary about Sunderland will say to you, it's an utter box of frogs of a club. So you've got a manager who's came in there who knows what he's doing, and also has got a budget as well. They can pay quite decent wages in a Scottish term, can Hibs. And if the crowds were back in, you would guarantee Hibs would be getting 14,000, 15,000 every home game. And that might have spurred them on to a victory last week. But I must admit, the game that I watched last week, I thought Rangers should not be losing that game when they're 2-1 up. No losing it by dropping points when they're 2-1 up.
Do you think it was a question of bottle then?
I don't know. I mean,
mentality.
Arfield had a decent chance at 2 each. It was a great save by the goalkeeper. Hibs have got Marciano. So I don't know if it was just maybe one of those days, but Hibs gave up an awful lot of chances, and I hope it's the same again.
I'm not getting lax. Certainly I'm not getting lax and saying Hibs are going to be second and Rangers will be a distant third. I'm not saying that at all, but I don't think Hibs will be pushing for the league. That's for sure. I think they're pushing for being the second top dog in Scottish football. That's the point I'm making. And they should be. And they should have been for years and years. They've been nowhere. Hibs have been nowhere. And I think with when you look at the club, you look at the fan base, Kevin, and you look at the fact that we've never really had a chance from Edinburgh for a long time, I think it's time for Hibs to start pushing that. I'm
going to say something a bit different. I think Safecoat and Hibs are looking at this as a 20-game league and hoping that that's as far as it goes, and they're putting everything in at the start of the league. We generally don't hit a top form until the second half of the league. So those are clubs that could be pushing for the league if it's going to get called after 20 games. I don't think they would do it over a 38-game season, but we've got to be conscious just now. We need to make sure we're in a league winning position all the time. We need to make sure that the average points is in our favour. Absolutely.
Now, the predictions are coming through. Let's read through some of these, and then I'll be asking you two guys for your predictions today. Joe Porter, welcome back to the show, Joe. 3-1 Celtic, Ayeti first goal. I think Ayeti would be a good bet for the first goal every other week. Joseph Byrne agrees that Celtic will win 3-1. And we've also got various other predictions on the formation, which is almost as difficult to predict as the actual score as well. But we're delighted to see everybody coming through. We've got people coming through giving us big shout outs from the States and all over the world, because obviously we are going far and wide these days on a Celtic state of mind, Kevin. Started off on the kitchen table, and now we're all over the place, and it's great to see people getting involved now with the broadcast, isn't it?
Brilliant. I love it. I love seeing the comments, and I get involved when I'm not in the studio myself. It's just how it's grown. The Celtic community is fantastic, and we're just going to keep on doing this and keep on giving them content, and more content coming up, and we just hope that Celtic keep on winning.
We had planned to do one earlier on today, a normal bulletin, but we had a rogue mouse in the studio, and I mean the actual computer version, not a rodent. Brian M513, greetings from USA. Let's go, boys. Brilliant. Great to hear from you. And Stephen, who is commenting via Twitter and who is commenting regularly on a Celtic state of mind, has gone 3-5-2 with Eduard and El Younousi playing behind, but can understand why Ayeti starts. So we've all got our... Listen, you know what's interesting? We've all got our opinions on the starting lineup, but that's because we've actually got a very strong pool of players. So going back to what you said before, Lawrence, that depth of the pool is often the reason why we can sustain it throughout a whole season and realise it's not a 20-game season. But going back to your point about McInnes, I think McInnes, Robinson and Tommy Wright, who has obviously left St Johnstone now, have all reached their limit at their respective clubs. You look at where St Johnstone are now since Wright's departure. I think he realised that he'd taken it as far as he could take it. Robinson probably should have left when he had the chance last year. He's now realising he's taken that job as far as he can go. Is McInnes in the same boat?
I think Robinson probably thought he was a good shout for the Northern Ireland job as well, but obviously that went to the guy Barraclough. McInnes has been to England before and failed. I mean, how long he'll be the longest serving top flight manager in Scotland. He will be quite a distance actually. But for Derek McInnes and for Aberdeen only to have one major trophy in the last 9 years, when St Mirren have won a major trophy, when Inverness, Ross County have all won major trophies, is absolutely shocking for a club the size of Aberdeen, when they were the genuine setting force in Scottish football.
Yep.
It's a
No, you're right.
terrible
They
record.
haven't capitalised on it, Kevin.
No.
And I do feel that McInnes, as you say, he's tried his hand down south, didn't work out for him in Bristol. I don't think he's going to get many opportunities down there, to be honest with you. So he's maybe just hedging his bets. I think, what it comes down to, there was a moment where Aberdeen did invest and the signings didn't take off, did they? I mean, they brought Stevie May back up, didn't work. They brought Niall McGinn back, didn't really work as well as he had the first time round, Kevin. And with clubs like Aberdeen, every single window, is so important. If you have a bad window, your whole season can be affected, can't
I
it?
think McInnes has got the backing of the Aberdeen board or the owner. And he's really unfortunate that his best teams have just happened to be in seasons we've been winning trebles. I take it that other teams, you're St Johnstone once.
Invincible season, 2 cup finals against them.
Aye, so he's been really unlucky that the best team he got into the park was coming up against Celtic's most consistent team, 3 trebles in a row. I think that's probably a bit of bad luck in his situation. I don't think he gets moved out south, but I don't think he's looking for it either. I think the board are happy with him, and he's kind of happy where he is.
Is he just waiting for Gerrard to leave?
Well, talking about that, you're saying Aberdeen not won one major trophy in 9 years. There's, I suppose, a bigger club with a worse record.
No, there is.
The one when you're talking about McInnes, I understand what you're saying, the 2 cup finals in the Invincible season, and they were really unlucky in the Scottish Cup final against us. They played well for 60 minutes and we completely dominated. But you're in a semi-final against St Johnstone. They play Dundee United in the final and you end up getting beat 1-0. I mean, that's a Scottish Cup for you. And they've went out to Motherwell a couple of times in the Scottish Cup as well. And I just don't understand. And their style of football as well is brutal to watch. It is like...
It's not almost the most
dodgy.
exciting, is it? You could definitely do better on his style of football, but maybe he's playing to the team's strengths. When Lenny was first time round and when Ronnie was here, we lost to some smaller teams as well. It's just, you're looking at, I think he's missed the boat with his best team. His best team definitely, I think, was probably Invincible season, and he was just
up against
Up
an
against
amazing
pushed his
Celtic
rush
side.
really hard.
Force of
Pushed his
nature,
hard.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, before we get onto the action, ladies and gentlemen, Lawrence Conley, prediction for today's game.
I'm going to go 3-0, Ayeti first scorer.
Seems to be quite a popular shout, Kevin.
3-1 Duffy, first goal scorer.
Right. I think it's going to be tight today. I think there's going to be a goal in it. It's going to be Lee Griffiths off the bench. Right, enjoy.
Will it be a Griffiths penalty?
Hope so. Right, everybody, enjoy the first half and we'll see you again at half time.